What if I told you everything you heard is not as it seems? That quote was on one of my business cards when I used to do magic at the age of roughly 15 to 16 years old. And Catherine Coulter was one of the people that helped me design the business card, the quotes and everything else I came up with, so on and so forth. However, the color pattern scheme and the approval process, obviously, she assisted with. But because of this, I was able to also practice a lot. And the way I got into business at a young age performing magic was, well, there was a gentleman by the name of David Blackwelder at J.M. Robinson High School going around doing magic tricks. And I was trying to help him. I was trying to, let's say, be a coach, so on and so forth, because I've been studying it for a long time, whether it was by a thick textbook that was filled with magic tricks or hanging out with certain individuals, busking on the street, so on and so forth, etc. And he got into a little aggressive state with me and he wanted to have a magic off. And of course, I ended up taking that challenge on and I ended up winning. However, I didn't appreciate what came afterwards because it wasn't supposed to happen that way, at least in my mind. See, once that happened, he started getting upset, resenting certain things for a certain time period, and started taking his anger out on me. It wasn't until later he was able to come forth and be like, "Yo, can you help me?" And in person, and was like, "Can you help me? Can you help me see exactly what you see? How do you plan this, that, and the third, right? What's your process? How do you?" Well, I said it's easy. I go out into the street and I do it, and I let people tell me that I suck or they caught something, etc. I read their facial expressions. If they're happy and they actually genuinely got surprised, well, then it worked. If it didn't, well, then it's back to the drawing board, right? Because you only get paid in proportion to the problem you solve, and there's a lot of depressed and sad people. And what does magic do? It creates wonder. It almost looks like a miracle. But the practitioners know how to think outside of a box. They know how to think logically because it has to make sense in the brain, right? They also have to be artistic because it's a performance. And then they combine science because, well, science or anything that has not been explained to you, that which is known as science in some places, is indistinguishable from magic. It was said in Avengers with Thor. They said, "How do you do that?" "Oh, and my planet is called science. You guys refer to it as magic." So, once you start thinking that way, well, then you start to see the world differently and you even read things differently, right? Like, for instance, I was reading the book of Enoch, right? And in there it talks about the luminaries and, the enlightened ones or something like that. But the name was luminaries, right? Or illuminated, right? And some of the things that they described was that they were living in their mansions and everything like that. And some of the fallen showed them how to get the humans how to get rid of embryos, kind of like abortion, so on and so forth. But the book was written years ago, wasn't it? But it was taken out. Why was the book of Enoch taken out? And, well, time was what played with. Well, if you get the book of Enoch, I thoroughly encourage you because, well, I'm pretty sure it's right around the Old Testament that they go into it, right? Everything in the New Testament came later, right? You never ask the question. They said in the book, so on and so forth, you're not supposed to change anything or remove anything, right? So they changed the words. They didn't change anything within a specific book that was titled a specific way because we're all children looking for someone to guide us, right? And just like children, they'll find the loophole, right? "Oh, don't change anything in this book." Okay, well, what if we named the book this and only put this number of books in there? Well, then we're not doing anything because it's a different title. It has a similar title, but it's a different version. Is that okay? Is that allowed? Okay. Well, people's languages are changing. Okay, so we'll just update the words, right? That they don't need to know the origination, do they? I mean, that's left to them. Seek and thou shalt find. That's what's in there, right? So they don't need to know the etymology and things. They don't know how to see two and two. They don't need to fully see that. Is that okay? We'll leave clues around. We'll give them a library, so on and so forth. They could ask professors and teachers. But my question is, why in the book of Enoch did they talk about that? That's weird because doctors and professionals of that sort, right, would normally talk about abortion and all the other stuff, right, and all the other bad stuff, right? And then it gets better, right? Because in there, Enoch actually meets the other angels, so on and so forth. And one of them has a ledger and looks at it, he's like, the stuff that I'm seeing and reading is quite honestly frightening me. I want nothing to do with this, and walks away. And then the other one gets up and leaves and says, walks away, right? And then it was just like this cyclical repeated pattern because, well, yes, history repeats. And if you were to read that, you would look at everything today and say, oh shit, history's repeating. And then you could pick up on patterns, the small, minute details that puts the dots together, right? Now, granted, before I got the book and before I even started and did and ended class, right? My philosophical series on a way of thinking better, I had a strong foundation. I did a lot of reading, but then I had to, well, be careful because some people thought I was cheating. Some people thought I was stealing information from somewhere. They didn't think my brain didn't operate like a magician's, right? You know, some people will say, oh, bless your heart. In New York, we just say, fuck you to your face. If you change the tone and pitch and sound sweet, is it still offensive? Because psychology would dictate you can talk to a dog a certain way, and the energy that's given off based upon the voice will have it respond. Oh my God, you're so stupid. Oh my God, you're the dumbest fucking thing ever. I love you so much. Oh my God. Or, what is wrong with you? See the difference? Now, you don't have to take my word of advice. If you studied psychology, you know about Pavlov's dog. They rang a bell, the mouth started salivating, and it anticipated food coming. It's the way they train, right? Similarly to the military, right? They don't call them crazies or psychopaths, etc. They may nickname them crazy or say, hey, you-hoo, so on and so forth, etc. Or, hey, crazy, so on and so forth, depending, right? But how do you get somebody okay with doing certain things? You give them a pet in survival training. This is a story I heard from a friend of mine. And they had two groups, men, women, so on and so forth. And they gave them both a pet. I don't know if it was a bunny, a duck, or whatever. And they were supposed to go out and survive. And they made friends with this pet, so on and so forth, because they were supposed to take care of it. Why? Because at a certain point, they were supposed to kill that very thing and eat it for survival. How far is one willing to go to survive, right? So they looked at the groups because this is a psychological experiment that has been proven, etc., to see how far someone goes. Remember, Abraham was given a ram, not his son. And so when that happened, right, it was one of those things like, and you know, the Tar Heels, I think they have a ram as a logo. So just because we're in North Carolina, or at least in Charlotte. So think about it, right? When that occurred, who was able to do it? Well, according to psychology, as well as the story, the female group, because they're more nurturing naturally, right? They were not able to do it, right? However, the males had no problem killing and cooking up whatever didn't look like them, if that makes sense, right? So the pet that they gave, right? Because pets sometimes look like their owners. The pet that was given to them, so on and so forth, they killed, they cooked it, skinned it, and ate it, and continued surviving. Here's the thing. There are better ways, right? I always quote Mickey Bricks in Hustle, right? He says this in the first episode of the first season, right? Because he's a person that likes to think outside of the box, that does right, even though it looks like he's breaking the law. His friend Ashley Morgan goes and does something, I think it's called the flop, right? Where you have a prior insurance issue, so on and so forth. You walk out in front of a car, they get hit by the car, causes injury, allegedly, well, probably does. They go to the hospital, brain scan and x-rays show the damage, insurance company pays out. And he was working this con, right? And finally, Mickey shows up. And he looks at him to make sure he's okay, and also if he's pretending or not. And he goes, Ash, there are better and easier ways to make a living. And he looks over and he looks up and he goes, Mickey! So on and so forth, right? His nickname was Mickey Bricks, but his name was Michael Stone in Hustle. And so thinking about the scenario of SEER training, right? I was listening to a lady that came from, I think it was North Korea, South Korea, etc. She was talking about all the stuff that they did and had to eat and all this other stuff. So I decided to, well, go out there because there's a better way to go about things, right? If you had a best friend, let's say you were in a canine unit or you just had a emotional support dog, etc., would you kill your best friend, so on and so forth, etc., because you were hungry? Or would you go the extra mile to find food for the both of you? So that when you're sleeping, this one could stay watch. When they're sleeping, you could stay watch. Right? So my question is, why didn't they utilize other methods of survival? See, because you can eat grubs if you watch Jungle Book, right? The bare necessities, right? You can eat grubs. I know it looks nasty, and I know there's people that like to take care of lawns and get rid of grubs, but if you get thrown in the forest, you can eat grubs. Sometimes you can eat grass. You eat salad, yes? Dogs eat grass. You can eat grass. It has calories. It has all the stuff that salad has, minus or plus or minus a couple things, right? You can forage for mushrooms, berries, nuts. You can look for, this is going to sound horrible, larvae underneath the bark of a tree, right? But why did they want them to kill the pet? Because they needed to have a psychological understanding that certain groups of individuals can be trained to kill something that they care about with or without knowing it, depending on the amount of duress or desperation. Now, in a courtroom, duress means several things, but desperation will lead you to do a lot of things. Let's say somebody stops you from acquiring a job and puts you in a deficit, right? Financially, right? Then they keep taking and taking and taking because they want to know and figure out how the hell is this person doing it so that if in case this happens to me, I can try to do this myself, right? Or they could just study you because they like psychology, right? Or they like understanding human behavior. They want to know how you move, what are your patterns, etc. The question is, are they studying you or are they going to put you in a situation where people hunt you? And if they put you in a situation where people are hunting you that already went through survival, evasion, rescue, and escape tactics, that got trained to kill, right? Then killing them with kindness doesn't sound the same anymore because they were kind to the pet at a certain point, but they killed and ate it at the same time. So you can say, oh, bless your heart all you want, but I still know you're saying fuck you to my face. So I'll just be blunt about it and break it down Barney style. See, most people don't like certain terminology, and well, you can call it bad language, taboo, don't say that, improper etiquette. But someone's always saying something, even if it sounds sweet. See, because I don't seem threatening talking like this. I don't seem threatening. Hi, papacito. Oh, come here. Papi, that's daddy, right? Yeah, etc. In the Odyssey, Odysseus gets told, or he sends it to his crew, and he says, be weary of the sirens, for if not, you will be surely casted upon the rocks. And this was a thing that most sailors knew, because when they went out to sea, there would be sirens, right? Not sirens like law enforcement sirens, but something to entice you, bring you in. Beautiful women looking like mermaids sitting on a rock singing to you. Or men, so on and so forth. Or something that you desire. And without paying attention, you start to steer towards that without paying attention to everything else. And it's just like the other scenario, except they were already trained. Oh, here they come, etc. And they keep going, yeah, no, come on, it's safe, it's fine, just come over. And then the ship would normally crash into the rocks. No longer having a ship, they now have food, transform, and they eat the crew. So, I mean, we have to look at things from multiple perspectives if we are to analyze certain situations, especially if things aren't the way they seem. So, getting back to hustle, why didn't they do things that are better? Whom was in power and control and told them certain parameters, and who didn't ask questions? At the end of this, so on and so forth, you're supposed to kill that and eat it, so on and so to survive, because there's apparently no food in this area. Interesting. So you're going to put people in an area where there's no food with an animal. So if there was a group of people in an area where there was no food, would it evolve into cannibalism? Probably, depending. We'll wait about 2 weeks and fuck around and find out. But then who are the mad scientists pulling the strings just to see what would happen? And then what do those people do to those individuals? Think about it. Now, I've never went through SERE training, but I put myself through a little bit of, survival training, going camping, studying Bear Grylls, etc. Sometimes I would purchase his knife from the store because it was very durable. It didn't rust or anything. I mean, hell, I bought this one from Walmart and it doesn't cost as much as the other one, but I took it to the beach and it ended up rusting. Right? I don't know if you could see this, but there's actual like rust marks on the blade, and I'm still trying to get it off. Thing is, it was marketed to very well, right? I think it was called the Analyst, right? And, I got it for several reasons, but it was one of those things where I was just like, let's test the steel. So I brought it to the beach and I let it sit there for a little bit. And I noticed that it started corroding, and it corroded detrimentally, right? Which means it's not a useful weapon. Because as everyone knows, if you have a car, if your car catches rust, the parts will dwindle, right? They'll become less durable, less effective. You could get tetanus, whatever, right? But when I studied Bear Grylls and I utilized his, it didn't tarnish or rust as much. But it also didn't cost as much either, which made me look into other things, the type of steel. I went on Google, what types of steel rust, so on and so forth. How do you clean rust, etc., so on and so forth. There's survival tactics, right? Because what happens if you only have one and you're stuck in the woods, right? And it rains and now your weapon is damaged because it got wet. Do you remember, which movie was it? Gladiator, I think it was. They were supposed to kill Maximus. His own people were supposed to kill him. He knew they were going to do it because they were trained well, right? So he says, at least do it this way. See, Maximus was a general for a reason. And when the personnel went without asking questions to do such a thing, their blade got stuck because of the frost of the cold. It gets the blade to stick. And he knew that. So they bought him time and he was able to, escape. Unfortunately, he did end up in a ring and dying eventually, but he got his revenge. But it came from a betrayal of jealousy because somebody wanted to take what he never wanted to begin with. He wanted to be with his family, his wife, kids, etc. And they wanted to put him into a position of power. And he said, thank you, but no. And the son heard it. And the son got upset. And the son, obviously in Gladiator, did what he does and, set everything up. And it wasn't until the end of the movie that they got in the ring together. Could you imagine if Frank Shamrock or Randy Couture or Conor McGregor, so on and so forth, has all these championships, right? Then their son gets into the ring. And for some reason, or better yet, someone they don't know that's not family. How about that? That's not family. Gets into the ring. They hear stuff. They're going to feel a certain way. People are going to say certain things. I feel like this person's better for the task than this individual. Why? Etc. And then the competition builds up and then the psychology plays in and there's the pattern recognition and then history repeats. You can learn a lot by slowing down and speeding up at the same time as though you are dancing the waltz. Quick, quick, slow. Quick, quick, slow. Quick, quick, slow. Right? The waltz. Right? So remember this in your future endeavors when reading anything, reading a room, reading life, reading people's intentions. Did someone tell you a story to play with your psychology to get you to believe something about them? Or did you actually have a face-to-face, in-person conversation with them? I guess we'll never know because we've never met, but maybe one day we will. Till next time, my friends, this has been another video in Finding Freedom. If you found this helpful, smash that like button. Don't forget to follow and subscribe, and leave a comment down below if you're interested. Peace.